Yes, hi everyone. Greetings of the day. Hope you guys can hear me well and hope you guys can see me. We'll just get started in a minute. I'll just give you guys all a second to join in and then we'll be on our way. Yeah. So feel free to introduce yourself on the chat in the meantime. Yeah. You can tell me where you're from and yeah, you're writing the PM exam, obviously, right? So you can also tell me what exams, what other exams you may be writing, yeah, or maybe any questions you may have. Please feel free, right? There will be a Q&A session at the end, so we will clear all the questions then, and any smaller questions we can deal with right now while we wait to get started. Hi, Dorian. Yeah, you're from Malta. Okay, this is your second try on PM. Hopefully, the last try, right? Not hopefully. Let's make sure it is the last try. Yeah. So, best of luck on that, right? And I hope you're well prepared for this time. All right, guys. Yeah, I think, okay, we'll get started and let's see. Hopefully, more people will join in the meanwhile. Right. So, first of all, a bit about me. My name is Arvind Suridev. I'm here with Learnsignal to guide you guys to your next exam. Yeah. And all of your writing performance management. So, performance management is, well, my forte, I would say. Right. I was a top scorer back in my days, but hopefully, you guys can figure that out when I talk about the subject. Yeah. Right. Now, other than that, I'm from India, if you guys haven't already figured that out. Let's get started. And yes, Dorian, yeah, section C of the syllabus is still a bit hard for me. Well, question practice, Dorian. And I would say you may want to know what these topics mean on a deeper level, not just the calculations or not just learning the formulas, right? I'll talk about it, yeah, in a bit, of course. So let's see. Yeah. So I would always say question practice and understanding in a deeper level, yeah, at a deeper level, all the topics involved. Yeah. Now, let's get started. So, performance management, how to pass your exam. I'll be your speaker for the day once again. My name is Arvind Suridev. Now, objectives of this particular webinar would be focusing on the key topics. We'll talk about the key areas that you guys definitely need to know. There is no way around it. Yeah. We'll talk about approaching each exam requirement, right? What are the exam requirements? How should you answer your question for a particular requirement? Then we will talk about the 2 week revision plan, because that's about how much time you guys have. Maybe less than 2 weeks. Yeah, almost 2 weeks, right? Time management and exam day techniques. What should you do on judgment day? Yeah. So D-Day action, right? Then 80-20 principle, some call it the Pareto rule. Yeah, the Pareto law, right? If you guys have heard of it. It applies in a lot of spaces, even in your exam success. Yeah, so let's check it out. And then there will be a small Q&A session and, of course, a conclusion. In the meanwhile, guys, once again, please feel free to introduce yourself on chat. Maybe talk about what your attempt, if it's your second attempt or your first attempt, or if there is anything particularly that you're facing as an issue. Why don't you talk about it on chat? Yeah, maybe I'll be able to help you out. Now, on that note, let's get further into it. Let's talk about the high priority areas. So, PM, performance management as a subject. Now, before you write PM, I hope you guys have some basic knowledge from management accounting. A lot of you may have gotten exemptions, but I would say management accounting is still an important paper that lays down the basics for PM. So keep this in mind. Yeah. If you ever have, well, I wouldn't say there is time to look through management accounting now, but it's something that you should know, or prerequisite knowledge. Yeah. Now, when you are focusing on certain topics, you may see that there may be a gap in your knowledge, especially when you're learning these topics from the PM material. Yeah. In such cases, try to look back towards MA material or try to find out the basics from the MA topics. Now, when you're on Learnsignal, you have access to all this. So, yeah, you don't have to particularly go back to some form of MA material to do this. You can just go to the assumed knowledge part, right? Now, anyway, let's talk about the high priority areas. First of all, the management information systems and data analytics. Now, this was a recently added topic, a management information system, MIS. MIS was always there. It was data analytics that was, well, quite recently added, not very recently. say about 4 5 years ago. Yeah. So understanding the role of information systems, data analytics, and big data for performance management. I would say this is a fairly easy topic, guys. You have to read through this. Remember one thing, we're talking about performance management. That is managing the performance of people, getting them to do what you want them to do, right? So maybe you want them to produce more or be more efficient, whatever it is. Yeah. You have to measure their performance, compare it to a benchmark or compare it to a threshold. Yeah. That's called variance analysis. Sure. You got to do that, and then you got to take corrective action. That's what performance management is all about. So remember, if you can't record their performance or if you can't capture that information properly, you won't be able to do proper performance management. And that's why management information systems are important. And this is also why data analytics is important. All the data that you can get about how your employees are performing, how your workforce is performing, how your management is performing, how your company on the whole is performing. Yeah. All of that is going to be useful to further improve the performance, right? So make sure you know the different kinds of management information that systems that come up. I'm talking about specifically the executive information system. There is the transaction processing system, the TPS, sort of like the operational level management information system, right? There is the expert system, yeah. And I think there is a DSS, decision making system, right? Decision support system, yeah, if I remember right. So please make sure you know all types of management information systems, what they are useful for, why they are different, yeah, and who or what level on the performance hierarchy would make use of each system. Now, data analytics would be important overall. So make sure you know all about data analytics. Main things to know, of course, the 5 V's and such. I hope you guys know veracity, velocity, value. Yeah, those were the latest ones. There was always volume, right? And velocity, of course, the speed at which data has to be processed. So make sure you learn the basics of, well, data analytics, and then, of course, further build on that knowledge. Now, moving on from there, the next topic of interest would be specialist cost and management accounting techniques. Now, this is where I would say a lot of MA also come into play because comes into play. Yeah, why? Because absorption costing, marginal costing, these are basic costing systems that you learn at the MA level, and these are carried forward. Yeah, and actually made a little more complex in PM. So if you're ever looking towards MA and thinking that, hey, there is something that I missed out on, this is what you probably missed out on. So make sure you know the costing techniques, yeah, and then look into the specialist costing techniques that you learn in PM. So in MA, you do learn absorption costing and marginal costing. So make sure you're really good at both those techniques. Very important, yeah. Without knowing absorption costing, there is no writing the PM exam, guys. Same with marginal costing also. You got to know both these techniques. Then comes, of course, covering ABC, target costing, yeah, life cycle costing, and throughput accounting. Now, I'll give you a 5 minute lesson on these. ABC costing, yeah, activity based costing, right? Focuses on breaking down your fixed overheads into multiple cost pools and then figuring out cost drivers. These cost drivers can be linked to the cost pool. Why are we doing all this? To break down the fixed overheads in a better fashion onto our products. Yeah. So this way you can cost your products better. Once you know the right cost, you can price it better. Yeah. That is why ABC is quite important. There is a budgeting technique based on ABC, and that is ABB, activity based budgeting. And then there is a management technique based on this, that is ABM, activity based management. You guys will learn that later in APM, so no need to break your head over that. But make sure you know ABB and ABC, right? Cool names, I must say. Then moving on from there, target costing. Target costing is super simple. It's quite useful in a competitive environment. When you're in a competitive environment, you need to have a competitive selling price. So a target selling price can be set. Now, you would have an idea of how much profit you want, right? What gains you want based on a selling price. Now, this could be a margin or a markup. I hope you guys know how those things work. Again, if you don't, basic stuff to know, margin and markup. Yeah. Now, coming back, of course, once you have a target selling price, you apply a margin on it, you can figure out what the target cost should be. Once you know your target cost, you can see how much your standard cost or budgeted cost is coming to be. You can do whatever it takes to close that gap between them. This is the idea of target costing. Yeah, super simple, easy marks if questioned. Yeah. Moving on from there, life cycle costing. Now, life cycle costing, very useful for products with, well, a particular life cycle, shorter life cycles. Yeah, quite useful. Even longer life cycles, yeah, say about 3 to 5 years. Laptops, mobile phones, such things come to my mind. Best costing technique to apply for such products, I would say. Why? Because there is a lot of research expenses involved in the development phase, yeah, and then at the launch phase, there's a lot of marketing expenses involved. Then comes the growth phase, yeah, at which point marketing cost may not be so high, yeah. Then comes the maturity phase. They may have to do like a facelift or some kind of feature, some kind of add-on feature. And then comes decline. These are the 5 stages of a product's life cycle. If you know the costs attached to each stage and you know how many units you're going to produce in total, yeah, you can take the total cost, divide by the total number of units to find out the cost per unit, and this is what we call the life cycle cost, yeah, per unit, of course, right? Quite useful technique, especially for products with a life cycle, yeah, say 5 to 10 years within that life cycle, yeah, quite useful there. Now, moving on from there, throughput accounting, guys, is very similar to marginal costing. The idea of contribution is definitely, yeah, rewritten or reused there. Yeah, throughput accounting also has something known as throughput contribution. But remember, in throughput accounting, we consider only material cost as a truly variable cost. Everything else is considered fixed. So because of this, the throughput contribution, yeah, is nothing but selling price minus your material cost, direct material cost. You get your throughput contribution. Now, the whole point is that whatever is your throughput contribution per factory hour, per bottleneck resource, yeah, it's like limiting factor analysis. Yeah. So whatever is your throughput per factory hour should be higher than your cost per factory hour. And this is what you calculate using the TPAR, throughput accounting ratio. Yeah, quite the simple stuff once you get a hang of what's happening. So practice as many questions as you can. Try to understand what these costing systems are and why they're so different and why they're so important. I mean, why do you have to learn this? Yeah. So may want to figure that out. Yeah. Now, moving on from there. The next topic, one of my favorite topics, decision-making techniques. Actually, quite useful, even in real life, I would say. Yeah. So focusing on relevant costing. Relevant costing is a very interesting topic. Once again, I feel a lot of students, yeah, don't understand relevant costing, or maybe relevant costing is one of the most misunderstood topics out there. Now, remember, guys, the key words to relevant costing: future incremental cash flows, 3 words, yeah, and opportunity costs, just to remember, right? Now, what does this mean? This means that money that you already spend, yeah, does not affect your decision because you already spend that money. Money that you're going to make or going to spend because of your decision, that is what is relevant. Yeah, this is particularly useful for one-off contracts. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you got some learning to do. Yeah. Other than that, yes, in relevant costing, opportunity cost is something important. Now, what is opportunity cost? See, imagine you have 2 projects in front of you. One project will give you $1,000, the other will give you $800. So the cost of taking up this $1,000 project is the fact that you won't be able to do the $800 project. So the opportunity cost is the money that you do not make. So you don't make the $800. Well, you better make more money than that by choosing the best opportunity. So you can say the money that we miss from the second best opportunity cost. Yeah. So try to understand what that is. Relevant costing, quite important. Later on in FM and other papers also, you will see relevant costing in different forms. So definitely important. Yeah. CVP analysis, cost volume profit analysis, is based on marginal costing. Now, once again, guys, marginal costing is a basic costing technique from MA, Management Accounting. What is marginal costing? Well, marginal costing works on the idea that fixed overheads don't need to be absorbed onto the products. Rather, you need to figure out how many products we need to sell to cover the fixed overheads. It works on the idea of contribution, selling price minus variable cost. You guys may have heard. Yeah. So take the selling price, subtract the variable cost, figure out what the contribution is. Why is it called contribution? Well, it contributes towards covering your fixed overheads first. After that, after a certain number of units that you sell, to cover the fixed overheads. Every unit that you sell makes you profit, which is the essence of CVP analysis, cost, volume, profit analysis. How many units do I need to sell to cover my cost and then to make some money? Yeah. So make sure you know the 3 different graphs that you see there. There is a break-even chart, there's a contribution break-even chart, there's a profit volume graph. Very simple. It's just the way these graphs are drawn. It's the same set of numbers that you use. Yeah. So make sure you learn that. It's again a very easy to learn lesson, quite often questioned also. Yeah. Now, moving on from there, limiting factors. Limiting factors are very similar to throughput accounting. Big difference is that we use normal contribution, not throughput contribution. What is the big deal between or behind limiting factors. How do I simply, how do I compare different products? Should I just produce the product that gives me maximum contribution? Well, yes, but also no. The idea is that it should be maximum contribution per unit of your limiting factor. Yeah. Think about this, guys. If you had very little money on you and you had to spend it tonight, how would you spend it? You would spend it on whatever gives you the most returns, or gives you most satisfaction. Correct? Same idea, limiting factor analysis. If you have a limit on something, a resource that you need to do some production, what would you produce? Whatever is most profitable. So figure that out. Yeah. And that's exactly what you do in limiting factor analysis. Then dealing with risk and uncertainty, well, quite straightforward. You have to know what risk is and you have to know what uncertainty is. The key difference here, risk can be quantified. Probabilities, that's what I'm talking about. Uncertainty, on the other hand, cannot be quantified. It's like not knowing what's going to happen. So how can I quantify it? Yeah. How do I protect against these things? Well, there are different techniques. Expected values being one of them. Super easy. Yeah, easy to learn. Now, at the PM level, you also have to be good at payoff tables. You may have heard of payoff tables. You use two metrics. Yeah, it's basically like a matrix. Yeah. So you create a decision table. Yeah, you can make decisions based on certain strategies: maximin, maximax, minimax, regret. This is what I'm talking about. I hope you guys know what these things are. If you don't, again, something to learn. Yeah. Most definitely something to learn. Other than that, there is sensitivity analysis that you guys need to go through, a technique that is often quite useful when you don't have probabilities. That means we don't have risk, we have uncertainty. So we need to know how much a number can move before we hit the ground. Yeah. So how much can my selling price be before it turns into a loss? Or how much can my cost go up to before I start making a loss? So this is what we look at under sensitivity analysis. The problem with that particular method is that only one variable is changed at a given time. So you may want to use something like simulation. Now, at the ACCA level, we are not, or in the scope of our syllabus, we're not expected to do simulations, but you're expected to know what a simulation is. Yeah. As an example, you can always learn the Monte Carlo simulation just to explain how simulations work. They're computer-based models with different parameters set into them. You can change multiple parameters at the same time and then see how the outcomes come about. This way, you can create a normal distribution. Yeah. You guys may have seen a normal distribution, 50% of the outcomes on this side, 50% of the outcomes on this side. This helps for further calculations. We don't particularly use it. We need to know what the technique is. Quite useful in times of uncertainty. Yeah. Now, moving on from there, the fourth area, priority area would be budgeting and control. Now, budgeting, the different types of budgets, you have to know. Yeah. So different types of budgets. Yeah, that is a key topic. Incremental budgeting, the easiest technique out there. Yeah, rolling budgets, quite interesting. There is, of course, zero-based budgeting. Takes time, but you can start from zero and figure out what's value adding and what's not by way of designing decision packages and choosing the right decision package. If these words sound strange to you, you guys know where you're lacking. So please go read that. Yeah. Then moving on from there, different types of budgets. What other budgets am I missing? There are, of course, fixed and flex budgets and flexible budgets. Most basic stuff you need to know. A fixed budget is based on a fixed number of units. A flexible budget is based on multiple levels of outputs, yeah, or multiple activity levels, multiple unit levels, right? A number of units. Yeah. The point is, a flexible budget can be used to figure out what is the per unit cost, and this is going to help me create a budget for any number of units I want. And we call it flexing a budget. For example, yeah, let's say the original budget was for 10,000 units and 15,000 units and 20,000 units. Three budgets, flexible, sure. But my actual production was 18,000 units. Now, obviously, I can't take any of these budgets and compare with my 18,000 actuals. I have to make a budget that would have been for 18,000 units and then compare it to my 18,000 actuals. Yeah. So that's what we do, right? When you flex a budget, basically you create a budget for the actual output level. This is what we do under variance analysis, something very important in budgeting and, of course, controlling your workforce. Yeah. So variance analysis, basic variances are from MA. You do learn a bit of it here. Yes, there is some callback to it. Something that you guys have to know, because the interesting things that you learn in PM would be your sales mix variance, sales quantity variances. You will have your material mix variance, material yield variance, and then you have planning and operational variances. These are all interesting variances, guys. You can call them advanced variance analysis. Sure. Yeah. And do remember standard costing, a simple topic often ignored by students. Very easy topic. I don't know why students ignore it. It's just about creating the standard cost card. Without the standard cost card, you can't do any of those variance analysis that we just talked about. Now, to talk a bit about variance analysis, planning and operational variances, very easy to learn. These are just a breakup of traditional variances. Yeah. So traditional variance can be broken up into two parts. One is the planning variance and the other is the operational variance. Now, the operational variance is what the manager can control. The planning variance is not the manager's fault. Why? Because whoever set the target set a wrong target. That is why. Yeah. Or set a target that was a little off. So this is why we break it up into planning and operational variances. It has its own problems. It has its own uses. Make sure you learn them all. Now, moving on from there, behavioral considerations. Different budgets, or the way you set your budget, the way you set your standards, can motivate people or demotivate people. So there are different types of standards, yeah, that may come to your mind: ideal standards, attainable standards, basic standards, the current standard. Yeah, know what these things are. They're all very easy things, very easy to learn, very easy to remember. Also, do not memorize things, guys. Learn the logic behind them. See how one thing is connected to another, so you can remember the whole paper like a story. Yeah. Now, behavioral considerations, why is it so important? Well, getting people to perform well and then getting people to repeat that performance. That's what performance management is all about. So, behavioral considerations of budgets, the way you set your budget, like I said, can influence the way your people will work or the kind of decision making that can happen. For example, if your performance measures are completely focused on financial indicators and profit based numbers, your managers will try to manipulate the numbers just to make it look like they're making good profits so that they can get their bonuses. Now, this leads to dysfunctional decision making. Not just the manipulation, but even the decisions that they make may not be good for the company in the long run. Yeah. So behavioral considerations, most definitely something important. Make sure you have enough knowledge so that you can write a well-rounded answer, especially in section C. Yeah, for such questions. Right. Now, moving on, performance measurement and control. The final section, I would say, as far as high priority areas go. Yeah. So, performance measurement and control is what performance management culminates to. So you start with your management information systems. You start with understanding, yeah, what is a break-even point, what we need to achieve. You understand what standards are. You understand how to use variance analysis or why budgets are important to get people moving, right? So you understand all that, and then it culminates into one final area, and that would be performance measurement and control. Now, here we will talk about financial measures you can have and non-financial performance indicators you can have. So FPIs and NFPIs. Yeah. Why does this matter? Well, if you only looked at financial numbers or financial performance indicators, cost cutting, yeah, only making profits, or only looking at revenue figures, sure, the company may achieve all of this in the short term, but in the long run, yeah, it's not going to look good for the company. The problem is the managers will do anything they can to achieve short term revenue, to achieve short term cost savings, but all these decisions may be detrimental to the company's long term performance. Yeah, this has happened to a lot of brands, right? I'm from India. There was a big company called Byju's from here. You guys can read about the company. They had great revenue streams and they became a $1 billion company quite fast, right? 10 years and it became like a $25 billion company. Quite good. Now they're no longer around. Why? Mismanagement, sure. Certain things, yeah. Good lessons on why performance measurement should be made better in the modern company. Yeah. Now, when I talk about non-financial performance indicators, the main things that come to my mind, the balance scorecard. Please don't miss out on it. This was an often question topic back when I was writing ACCA. That was in 2011, I think I wrote PM. Yeah, so back then also, yeah, about 14 years back, it was as important as it is today. So the balance scorecard focuses on four perspectives that you need to look at. Yeah, when you try to assess the performance of a company. So four perspectives where you need to have goals and where you need to have measurements. And I'm talking about the financial perspective. There is the internal business process perspective. There is the learning and innovation perspective. And there is the customer perspective. You guys need to be able to define all of these perspectives. You need to be able to come up with one goal or two for every question, every scenario. And you also need to be able to bring up measures for the set goals. So practice such questions, quite often questioned in section C. Other than that, you also need to know Fitzgerald and Moon's building block model. Yeah, I believe it was Fitzgerald and Moon. Yeah, so their building block model is also quite interesting. It's about setting standards and how certain things Like, for example, standards should be attainable. There should be ownership for standards. And then based on these standards and their achievement, rewards should be given. So the reward should be known. They should be well defined. It should be fair and equal to people. So there are some qualities of each of these blocks mentioned. The main block here would be the dimensions of performance. Yeah. So there are 6 of them. There are 4 of them that are performance, what do you call it, upstream determinants. Yeah. And then there are 2 of them that are downstream results. Yeah. Now, what am I talking about? So upstream determinants determine how your company is doing. Yeah. Things like quality, flexibility, all of that, right, come under those, yeah, qualities, or come under those characteristics, upstream determinants. Because upstream determinants, yeah, they're called so because if I master them, my performance is going to look good. And the downstream results are effectively, yeah, how much market share you have, or what is your financial performance. So such things tell you how well you're doing. Yeah, this is a result of the upstream determinants. And this is what you learn in the building block model. Make sure you do look into that, right? So there are 6 dimensions. I don't exactly remember all 6 of them, but yeah, these are the dimensions that you need to check out. Yeah. Now, moving on from there, divisional performance, yes, is also important. Divisional performance is where you learn transfer pricing. I believe transfer pricing was a topic not so explored in MA, so all the more reason to explore this in PM. Yeah, your examiner also feels the same way, so you can expect a lot of questions from that area. Methods that you need to know, or techniques that you need to know off the top of my head: ROI, RI, yeah, return on investment. RI is residual income. Compare these 2 methods. If you only focus on ROI, it's like focusing on ROCE, the accounting rate of return, yeah, to look at a company or a division's performance. The problem with this is, yeah, it's completely profit based. So people would look at, well, increasing the profits or maintaining or taking up projects that only have a certain level of ROI. Now, this is good, sure. But the problem is, you also have to consider residual income. What is the absolute amount of money made from doing a project? This could lead to better decision making. Yeah. So make sure you learn how to do both methods, ROI and RI. Make sure you know what is going on. Yeah. Make sure you're able to compare them and also comment on both techniques. Now, other than that, under divisional performance, you do have transfer pricing. So how should transfer prices be set? A bit of relevant costing does come into play here. So knowing relevant costing will help you quite a bit. Other than that, remember, transfer pricing, the ideal transfer price is where the performance of both managers can be quite well captured by the management information systems. Now, what am I talking about? See, imagine you're a manager within a division in a company. Now, in this company, yeah, the head office is calling you and telling you, hey, transfer all the goods to the other division that needs it for something at zero transfer price. Now, if your performance is based on the profit that your division makes, you just had to sell a lot of units at a zero transfer price. What profit did you make from that? Negative. Yeah, you would have just had costs for those units. So, would you be okay if your performance was based on your division's profit then? Probably not. Yeah, this is exactly what we learned under transfer pricing. So, make sure you look into that. Very important topic. Yes, quite questioned almost every other PM exam. So make sure you look into it, right? Then the balance scorecard is mentioned here. Yes, the balance scorecard and the building block model. Yeah, please do go through them. Again, very easy topics. Other than that, I think one topic that's not mentioned here is VFM, value for money. The 3 E's. This is again prerequisite knowledge. It's brought forward knowledge from MA, but make sure you know it. Yeah, it's very easy, right? And it's quite useful for public sector organizations and not-for-profit organizations. Yeah. Now, moving on from there, let's talk about approaching each exam requirement. So remember, guys, reading and planning your exam would be quite important. So importance of understanding what the question is. Yeah, understanding command words like calculate, explain, and discuss to align responses with question requirements. That's absolutely true. See, you could know everything in the book. You could know how to solve any question. You could reason on anything. But if you don't write the right answer for the right question, you're still not going to get any marks. So make sure you can figure that out, right? Don't, what do you call it? Don't jump the gun. Yeah. Read through the question quite well. Yeah. Put your focus on it. Read with your, yeah, read in 100% focus. I mean, how do I put it? Yeah. Put your mind to it. read it carefully, and then only write your answer. So frame an answer within, before frame an answer in your mind before you put it down on paper. Try to keep it professional, especially if it's a written response that involves a bit of writing. Try to break it up into paragraphs, try to have subheadings. Imagine you were talking to a client or somebody that, well, you had to impress. Yeah. So obviously try to keep it professional and clean, concise, to the point. Sure, you can use bullet points at the knowledge or the skill level. Yeah, it doesn't matter so much. But later on, when you reach the professional level, the strategic level, you can't just sustain on bullet points. So I would always ask students to refrain from bullet points, because it is better if you start writing fuller sentences and start writing fuller answers. Yeah. Think of yourself as the examiner. If you were the examiner, what kind of answer would you like to read? And don't tell me bullet points. Right. Now, answer structure here. So using a clear structured approach, yep, absolutely. Starting with definitions, yes, even if the question does not necessarily ask you for a definition, if it's a written response, you can define it. Think of the examiner as an idiot. Yes, in the sense you got to explain everything to them. Yeah. So try to keep it simple like that. Try to keep it, yes, precise, and not precise, I would say concise and straightforward. Yeah. Talk about things, explain calculations if you have to, if it is applicable, if there are calculations involved. When you do an analysis, yes, try to show the analysis and conclude with recommendations, yeah, if need be. Now, when you do these things, also make sure you're following a clean structure. Don't conclude first and then work everything out. Don't work everything out, or put your workings in the beginning and then, yeah, show a conclusion. Have more of a structure to your answer. Make it clean. Keep it clean. Yeah, that's also a skill that would be later rewarded in your strategic level exams. So don't forget that. Yeah. Now, moving on from there, 2 week revision plan. What you guys should be doing now that you don't have too much time left. So let's talk about the first week. That would be right now. Yeah. So days 1 to 3, review core topics. Make sure you know everything that you need to know. Yeah. Without the knowledge, you can't have anything to apply. So understand the knowledge, acquire the knowledge. Yeah. So particularly decision making techniques and budgeting. Yes, core topics. You already have a list of core topics that you need to look through. PM is actually a short paper. It can be learned in a few days. It's not impossible to learn this. Now, just because I said this, don't wait for the next week and then learn. Yeah, don't do that. But have confidence when you move ahead, right? If you're feeling maybe there is not enough time, maybe there is enough time. Yeah. So think positively, approach carefully, know yourself, understand what you need to understand. So week 1, days 1 to 3, review core topics, particularly decision making techniques and budgeting. And then days 4 to 7, practice full length questions in key areas like performance measurement and control. Yes, yes, yes. Full length questions would be important. Most students only go through multiple choice questions. Now, it's great to go through multiple choice questions. Doing some question practice is better than doing no question practice. Agreed. But if you're going to do some question practice, might as well do all the question practice required. Yeah. So try to write the bigger answers, try to write section C questions more. Full length questions make you think, they make you write. And I want you guys to sit down and write and time yourself. Yeah. Make sure you don't take more than a minute and a half for 1 mark. Yeah. It's actually a minute and 1.8 minutes for 1 mark. What is that? That's about 1 minute and 48 seconds. So yeah, try to keep it to 1 minute and 30 seconds. Try to be timely. This will help you a lot. Yeah. Moving on. Week 2, what are you supposed to do? Days 1 to 3, identify your weak area. Since you have already practiced these full length questions, you would know where you're lacking. So this is your time to recoup on that. So identify weak areas with practice, review past examiner reports also to understand common pitfalls, mistakes that students make. Maybe read a technical article if there is a topic that you're finding hard. Focus on challenging topics. This is your time to do that. Then the last 4 to 7 days, yeah, or the 4th day to the 7th day, not 4 to 7 days. Yeah. So day 4 to 7, conduct timed mock exams. Now, mock exams, guys, are a big part of preparing you for the final dance. Yeah, it's like a rehearsal dance. Yeah. Quite important. Why? Because most students, the first time they see a question paper is when they go to the exam. And that is not cool. Why? Because you don't want extra anxiety on top of the anxiety that you're already facing, yeah, because you're going through the exam. So might as well write a mock. Be sure, yeah, be not be sure. Like, have an idea of what comes up. Have an idea of how much time you have. Train your mind to work within that 3 hour span. Yeah, at its best. So conduct timed mock exams. Get them corrected. Yeah, get them, look through them. Right, understand where you are lacking. Try to cover that gap. Emphasizing time management and refining answer structure. this is what you should be doing towards the fag end of these 2 weeks, yeah, or whatever time is left. So make sure you can do that. This should give you an all-round study experience, which should have you ready for the exam. Yeah. Now, moving on from there, time management and exam day techniques. So time per strategy, yeah, time per mark strategy. This is basically how much time you have for 1 mark. You have 180 minutes for a 100-mark exam. That means 1.8 minutes per mark. So allocate 1.8 minutes per mark, ensuring balanced coverage of all questions. Which means if it's a 10 marker, yeah, don't spend more than 18 minutes on it. If you feel that you're going to spend a lot of time on it, you can always circle back to it. Don't waste your time on one single question trying to crack it. That question is not the be all and end all of your PM exam. Remember that. Yeah. Then prioritizing questions. There you go. Starting with familiar or high mark questions. Yeah, not risk. High mark questions to secure easy marks early on. Most definitely start with the harder questions first, or not start with the harder questions, start with familiar questions that get you a lot of marks. So this could be a section C question that you know, yeah, quite well. Start with that, no worries. So starting with familiar or high mark questions is one short way to secure your pass mark quite early on in the exam time. Yeah, so that's one thing to do, right? But again, I would say this is personal choice. Some people do like to start off with the harder questions. Personally, I like to start with the easy questions. Easy marks are always, yeah, easy to get. I don't want to leave them towards the end. Yeah. So whatever is easy to get that first. Then whatever is harder, think and write your answer. Yeah. Now, maintaining pace is very important. Skimming the paper first to spot high priority questions and sticking to the time allocated per part. In simple words, look through the paper, find what you can answer easily, answer that first, and then work out the other parts. Yeah. So skimming through the paper first, quite crucial. It's not just looking at it and getting scared. Yeah, it's also about looking at it and getting a plan in place. Yeah. Now, moving on from that. 80-20 principle that we were talking about earlier, guys, the Pareto rule. Yeah. So this is the idea that 80 marks or 80% of the marks, yeah, come from 20% of the topics. Now, of course, this is not exactly true, but there is, yeah, a good idea behind this. I mean, there is a lot of proof behind this. So 80% of the mark comes from 20% of what you have to learn. Yeah. So master that 20% and you have a good shot at clearing your exam. Yes, absolutely. Similarly, you can think of it the other way also. Yeah. Uh, 80, right, 20 marks come from 80% of the topics. Yeah. So this is also the way to think of the 80-20 rule. Now, what does this mean? What is the practical application of this? Yeah, focus on high yield areas. So areas that you're sure will be questioned, that 20% area where 80% of the marks come from, make sure you know that. So key topics such as decision making, budgeting, performance measurement, they all frequently appear in the exam. Yeah, there is no PM exam without budgeting, nor without any performance measurement, nor without some form of decision making. Yeah, and quality over quantity. See, guys, it's not just about covering lessons or covering pages or, yeah, going through a ton of questions. It's also about understanding things. Yeah, so concise, well organized responses score better than lengthy, unfocused ones. Same, yeah. If you understood what you had to learn, your answers also would be more rich. They would be more reflective of the actual knowledge that you have, not just the rambling or just the listing of steps from whatever you have memorized. You don't want to be that person. You want to be the person with the well-rounded answer that gets you marks. So quality over quantity for sure. Yeah. Then moving on, analysis of the recent examiner's report. Small talk about the examiner's report itself, guys. These were the general comments and key takeaways from it. Yeah, so general performance overview, right, that the examiner gave. Lack of application-based answers. That was something, yeah, that was a problem, right, especially in discussion questions. So they were not applying their knowledge. They were not really relating it to a scenario. These kind of problems can be quite common. Yeah, so try to work around that. This is why written practice of full-length questions are quite useful. Yeah. Then difficulty in structured responses and clear workings in calculations. So students always ask me, do we need workings? Yes, to an extent, yes. And when you do put down these workings, try to make it as simple and as clear as possible so that whoever is reading your answer sheet can easily understand, hey, how did this guy get that number? Oh, what did he do? What did he or she do with that number? So make sure you're able to show what is exactly happening, yeah, with the numbers, especially when there is a twist or a turn in your calculation. Highlight that in your workings. Yeah. So difficulty in structured responses is also something students have to work around. Try to have a standard format for almost all your answers. Yeah. There are only so many types of questions that can be asked. So try to have a gentle idea of how you want to structure your answer. The rest is the knowledge that you put into it. So if you can crack both these areas, you can get good marks. Yeah. Then limited demonstration of professional skills, particularly in decision making scenarios. Now, of course, professional marks or professional skill areas are not marked in PM. That's in the strategic level, but it's very important here. Things like decision making, applying your knowledge to scenarios, these things are still marked through your answer or through your technical marks or through your technical marks, not professional marks. There are no professional marks in PM, but don't forget the importance of professional skills. You still need to demonstrate professional skills. You still need to have a well communicated answer, exercise or exhibit commercial acumen, know what is evaluation, know what is analysis. So make sure you're able to do all those. Make sure you're able to relate your answer to the scenario. Yeah, quite important. Right. And more than that, yeah, what other comments did the examiner make in the report? Calculation errors, common mistakes in applying formulas. Guys, you don't have to memorize the formulas, right? So that's one upside, but don't let that stop you from actually applying the formula. Just because you're given the formula in the exam should not be the first time. Yeah, so that shouldn't be the first time you're seeing the formula. You should have practiced the questions, or you should have used the said formulas before also. So be acquainted with formulas. No need to memorize them. That's not the way to go. The way to go is understanding why a formula is so that way you can manipulate the formulas if required, so you can truly learn something. Yeah, so common mistakes in applying formulas, understand what they are, especially for learning curve and pricing strategies. Now learning curve comes under quantitative techniques. It talks about how when you do something for the first time, you're not so good at it, or you take a lot of time to get it done. Then the more you do it, yeah, the faster you're at it. Like, I didn't know how to make a coffee sometime back. Like, okay, I'm embarrassed, but still, sometime back, say about 8 years ago. Now, then I learned how to make a coffee. The first coffee I made took a lot of time. Now, if you ask me to make a coffee, I can make you one in 3 minutes. I'm kind of proud about that because I did make one right before our session. So, this is the learning curve, guys. Basically, the more you repeat something, the faster you get at it. And there is a law behind this. It's called the Wright's Law. Yeah, Wright as in the Wright brothers. You're right, very similar. I mean, same spelling. Yeah. So, what is this Wright's Law? It says that when the cumulative output doubles, right, your the time you take becomes a percentage. The average time you take per unit becomes a percentage of the previous average. Yeah. So try to understand this law. Try to be in such a situation that you're able to apply the meaning of this to your calculations. Of course, not just learning the formula. The formula is actually given to you. The formula very easy to learn. What matters is being able to manipulate the formula, understanding the situation, being able to find out the average cost of any unit or even the cost of a given unit. So cost of the 100th unit or the 180th unit. Yeah. So such questions do come up. So make sure you're good at that. Then pricing strategies, a very easy topic. I was actually sad to hear about this when the examiner's report came out. Pricing strategies is it's very psychological, I would say. Yeah, psychological, right? That's the right word. Yeah. So you have different pricing techniques that you have to know, and how these techniques would influence your customer. Yeah. What I'm talking about is techniques like complementary pricing, captive pricing, penetration pricing, market skimming. These are all things that we see in the real world. They're actually quite fun to learn also. So don't miss out on key topics like this. Key areas where a lot of students make mistakes. It could be also because students feel that these are easy topics. So, hey, I can wing the answer. Sure, you can probably wing it, but some knowledge may help when you're winging it. Yeah. So keep that in mind. Then, generic responses. So, over reliance on theoretical knowledge without adapting answers to specific scenarios. Ooh, I knew a classmate like that back in school who knew everything from the textbook, but when it came to putting it down in the answer sheet, she didn't perform so well. So, you don't want to be her, right? So adapting answers to specific scenarios, being able to understand the scenario, being able to understand what knowledge you need to put down there, and then actually putting it down there. Yeah, important. Don't just give generic responses, the same default responses. Don't do that. Then incomplete workings, insufficient calculations, and lack of clear steps leading to lost marks. Most students overlook workings. They mention something or the other. I've seen this when I corrected exam papers. Yeah. Not for ACCA, but for other exams and yeah, college-based exam papers. But even there, you see the same kind of responses. Workings are incomplete. It's for the examiner to fill in the blanks on the workings. Somehow they've got the numbers, But the numbers, you need to show how you got the numbers. You have to think of the examiner as somebody who doesn't know anything. Yeah. So how do you show somebody who doesn't know anything how you got something? Show those steps, and that's exactly what you need to do. So make sure you have proper calculations, sufficient calculations. Make sure you actually get to the number that you're supposed to get to. Don't stop halfway. You can assume numbers if you don't have the time. You guys may have heard of this, right? Assume numbers do work, but you gotta explain, or you have to disclaimer required that you assume the number, because based on certain factors, you assume the number. You can use assumed numbers. If you don't have time, I would always suggest that you calculate properly, of course. Yeah. Don't just use assumed numbers. Yeah. Now, moving on from that, what else? Cantlist analysis of past attempts. So here we have a small analysis of all the previous attempts that students have given and where they didn't do so well. So what went wrong? Candidates struggle with identifying relevant costs in material procurement and conversion. See, if I had a dime for the number of people, a number of students who did not know relevant costing, I would be quite rich. Yeah, because relevant costing is often thought of as a hard topic. I don't know why. It's just decision making at its best. Yeah, always remember this, guys. A cost is relevant, or an income is relevant. Yeah, cash flow is relevant if it is affected by your decision. If it is not affected by your decision, it's not relevant. It's as simple as that. Yeah. So work on that logic. You should be able to crack it. Then difficulty associating performance measures with economy. Yeah. Within the value for money framework. Now remember what I told you. VFM, super easy to learn, perfectly useful for not-for-profit organizations, quite useful even for profit-making organizations. But students were finding it hard. Difficulty associating performance measures with economy, one of the three E's. Yeah. So the three E's are economy, effectiveness, and efficiency, of course. Economy, efficiency, and effectiveness in that order. Yeah. Economy is getting your resources at the best price possible. It's not cheaping out on quality, it's getting the right quality at the right price. That's what it's all about. So the best price possible. And then efficiency, minimum input, maximum output, and then effectiveness. All that output, if it's faulty output, it's useless. So it has to be effective. Whatever you got has to be effective in achieving the criteria that you wanted to achieve, the objective that you wanted to achieve. So here, anyway, students were finding problems putting down performance measures with economy. Yeah, one of the E's of the value for money framework. That's quite interesting or quite surprising, because economy is the easier of the lot. Yeah. So make sure you don't make the same mistakes, guys. Practice questions from that topic. Yeah. Misapplication of the learning curve formula, already discussed here. Already discussed was the idea of how learning curve works and what learning curve is. So practice as many questions as you can. Usually questions will involve calculating a particular cost for a unit and then figuring out what would be the cost for other units, other orders, and such. So find the most complicated question you can find. Try it. There is something known as a steady state. A steady state is where, there is no more learning to do. Now, I told you guys I can make you a coffee in 3 minutes, right? Now I can't go faster than that, because that's how much time these things take. So there is no more learning to do. That's steady state. Yeah, there you go. So make sure you know such things. Now, errors in selecting appropriate information security controls for non-network technology. Yes, these were the recently added topics. Yeah, they talk about non-network technology, network technology, all of that. Now, information security controls, it's more of a generic read, but if you guys don't know this, you'll be losing out on easy marks. So I would say, please read that. Please go through it. Right. Then, many candidates, yes, struggle with calculating optimal selling price using marginal revenue and cost. Guys, again, quantitative analysis. Yeah, you may know about MR is equal to MC, right? Where for a given quantity, you can calculate what the ideal price should be to sell that quantity. It's actually quite easy if you know what you're doing. So MR is equal to MC, marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Why? Well, the cost of making one extra unit. Yeah, will at one point be equal to the excess revenue that one extra unit makes, and that's marginal revenue. Why is so? Because to sell more, I'll have to bring down the selling price. At one point, the selling price will be so low that I won't be making so much revenue from selling that one more item. Now, if that marginal revenue is equal to the marginal cost, that's the maximum we can go. So what quantity can we sell? Based on that, find a price. I've essentially told you what you need to do. Yeah, with that particular chapter. So make sure you know how to do it, guys. Easy marks. Come on. Yeah. Then difficulty determining the price point at which demand would reach zero. Oh, yes. So P is equal to A minus BQ is the price equation. Yeah, you guys may have heard of it. It's based on the Y is equal to A plus BX equation, linear equations, right? So P is equal to A minus BQ. A is the highest price possible, at which point nobody buys that product. Now, A can be quite easily calculated, especially if you have numbers given to you in the question. For example, if they have told you when the price is, say, $300, the quantity sold is 100 units. Well, you have a P and a Q. So if you know B, yeah, you can find A. So try to work backwards and then make out the equation. Yeah. So again, question practice will get you through this. Yeah. Now, moving on, guys, errors in calculating profit, especially in distinguishing fixed and variable costs at different activity levels. Step fixed costs, semi-variable costs, yeah, semi-fixed costs, all of these. So working with different types of costs which have fixed elements, semi-fixed elements, semi-fixed elements, variable elements, yeah, trying to break them up or understand how to break them up, yeah, can be quite useful. You should learn this as a part of budgeting, yeah. And this is important because how else do you make a flex budget? Errors in applying regression analysis. Your regression analysis is using multiple outputs, not outputs, I would say, multiple observations. Yeah, observations, that would be the right word, to find out the X and Y variables, the independent and dependent variables. So basically, you're trying to find out the linear relationship between two variables using regression analysis. Now, a lot of students get regression analysis wrong. I don't know why, because the formula is given to you in the formula sheet. It's just about carefully applying the formula. Make sure you're good at BODMAS or PEMDAS or whatever you call it, the brackets coming before everything, and then using your powers and multiplication and division before addition and subtraction. You would be surprised to know how many students get that wrong. Yeah, so don't be one of them. Then calculating staff days, correlation coefficients. This is what most students get wrong with regression analysis. Should be easy provided you practice enough questions and also know what regression analysis is all about. Try to understand things from a very grassroots level. For example, if somebody asked you what it is, you should be able to explain to them in a very basic form, yeah, or in a very rudimentary way, very easy to understand way on what that is. Yeah. So that's when you know that you know something very well. So make sure you can do that. Moving on from there, guys, what other things did we learn, yeah, from analysis of past attempts? Many responses lack depth on the limitations of regression as a forecasting tool. Yes, if you can forecast or if you can figure out what X and Y are going to be, you can do a lot of forecasting. If you can figure out what a trend line is, yeah, you can find out the trend line using regression analysis. You can continue to do time series on it. Yeah, so there are so many uses for this. So a lot of responses lack the depth that was required. Yeah, that spoke about the limitations of regression as a forecasting tool. Then there was difficulty in presenting divisional profit statements, especially with interdivisional transfers. This means students did not learn transfer pricing. Yeah, you don't want to be doing that for your PM exam. Transfer pricing is quite relevant here. That some candidates missed how internal transfer price changes impact divisional but not overall company profit. That also, yeah. So uh, candidates kind of like missed out on the whole point here, I would say. They made divisional performance just about the division. Guys, you have to remember divisional performance is also contribute to the company's performance. Now, whether the transfer price is zero or whether transfer price is a different number may not ultimately affect the company's performance, but sometimes it can lead to dysfunctional decision making. For example, if the internal transfer price is higher than the external purchase price, a division that needs to buy the said item may buy it from outside without buying it from within the company. So there is a loss of profits or there is a cost being incurred there, which could have been avoided. This is dysfunctional decision making. So a lot of situations like this do come up. So make sure, yeah, right, as you learn through it, make sure you're able to see the differences or different situations where transfer pricing is quite useful or quite important. Yeah, and also be able to calculate the overall company profit. Yeah, whatever the transfer price is. So here are some key recommendations, guys. Yeah, please make sure, yeah, that you focus on application, apply theoretical knowledge to scenario-based questions, avoiding rote responses. A rote response is just a generic response of what you've learned. Define something. Okay, I define this. Done. No, please don't do that. Try to define things short, and then talk about it in the context of a scenario. Yeah, that should guarantee you the marks. Yeah. Then detailed workings provide clear and structured calculations for all answers. Yes. Ensure complete and accurate workings. We already talked about this. So please make sure you have proper workings, list them out, name them, give them subtitles or give them identifiers like working one, W1, W2. Mention next to your main answer or your calculation or your response where these workings can be found or which working is relevant to what number. Yeah. Then professional approach, enhance decision making, clarity, and practical application in your responses. Yes, have a well thought out response. Compare the pros and cons of a given situation, be diplomatic, and then decide why you should go for a particular decision. Yeah, do not be swayed by something, right? Have facts behind your decision. That's the whole point. Back your decision up. Yeah. So, practical application of all the methods that you know, all the metrics that you know on how to find or how to make the right decision. Yeah, that's what PM is all about. So make sure you can master that. Then moving on from there, guys, that's pretty much it from my end, right? So just to recap, yeah, with PM, I would say, or with any paper for that matters, I would say first go through what topics you have. Right. I know there isn't so much time to like sit down and read everything. Yeah. But try to look at the contents and then try to figure out what is the framework of the topics. Yeah. For example, you start with management information system. You talk about what these systems are, and then you talk about the measures, and then you talk about recording these measures. Why? So that we can do some variance analysis. And why variance analysis? So as to achieve some objectives that we have set, so as to see if performance is actually being achieved, right? For this, you need performance measurement. So try to link all your topics together, learn it like, well, one subject. And that's exactly what this is, right? So all these different areas have some relationship to each other. Make sure you can crack that. Once you can crack that, you will have a logical approach to well, your paper itself, to the syllabus. And that's the easiest way to learn this. Other than that, guys, question practice. Yeah, I would say put as much time as you can into question practice. If you're not practicing questions, that's a dangerous game to play. Right, at least one mock. Yeah, uh, if possible, two or more, right? I think two or three should be more than sufficient. By then, you should know where you stand and move with confidence. If you feel that you don't know some area, right, try to sit down and crack that area. Right now, you have the time to do that. The exam is not tomorrow, but the exam is not next month also. I mean, it is next month technically, sure, but it's in the next, yeah, 10 to 12 days, right? So keep that in mind. Yeah. And on that note, right, that's pretty much everything from my end. You guys can feel free to post your questions on the chat, right? I don't see anything over here. Please post your questions, guys. Please, please do. If I can help you out with it, I shall, right? And yeah, that's that. Other than that, I hope you guys found this session useful. I hope you were able to recollect some things for your PM exam that may be relevant that you may have not looked at. So please go ahead and look at it. Yeah. Uh, yeah, that's about everything from my end. I'll just give it a minute, right, in case anybody has a question to post. If not, we shall wrap up. I can also see a poll, guys. You can go vote on the poll, by the way. How confident are you for the PM exam? Super confident, confident, neutral, underconfident. Yeah. Well, if I had a PM exam, I could have voted, but I don't. So I would like to see you guys vote. Yeah, sure, why not? If somebody voted underconfident, yeah, whoever that is, right? The next few days are what can make or break your exam. Yeah. So make sure you put your best foot forward for the next 5 to 10 days. The fruit of that would be sweeter than most fruits out there. Yeah. So try to achieve that. And yes, guys, please feel free. I'm still not seeing any questions over here. So please, yeah, any kind of questions, any topic that you're finding hard, any topic that you would like me to talk about, anything that is short, ideally, right? But feel free. Yeah. And here's the QR code also, right? If you guys can see my screen, you can see the QR code for the contents on Learnsignal. Check it out. Yeah, I'm sure most of you may have already gone through it. If you haven't, this is the time for it. And if you have bootcamp access, please keep practicing questions. Bootcamp is very important. Yeah. Now, uh, I think we can wrap up here. I don't see any questions. Okay, I'm going to assume that you guys are confident then, right? Whoever voted underconfident, I know you're lying. Yeah. So, right. I hope you guys are confident. Please don't feel underconfident. Make sure you put the right foot forward. Yeah. Go with an open mind. Study with an open mind. Yeah. Hope for the best. Expect the worst. That's what you need to do. Other than that, I think we can wrap up here. So once again, guys, my name is Arvind Surdev. I had a great time talking to you guys about one of my favorite ACCA papers, that is performance management. I hope it will turn out to be your favorite too in the long run. Yeah. I hope that you will see why this paper is so interesting. And I hope you will also find the same confusion that I sometimes have when I see the pass rates. How is it that this paper is the hardest paper out there? So hopefully it won't be the hardest for you guys. It'll be the easiest. Yeah. So keep in mind whatever I told you. And once again, best of luck for your exams. Thank you. You guys have a great day. Yeah. Bye bye.